Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Trenton 365 show. I am your host, Jacque Howard. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. Everyone knows we've got lots of things that are happening in 2020 with the COVID, with the pandemic and political, etc. But I am now live streaming from home, and I won't let you see the whole living room. My wife is working on the other side. Our child is actually in class, so that's actually kind of interesting to be able to be home in this kind of a dynamic. But I wanted to let you know that we are still broadcasting over WIMG 1300, New Jersey's oldest radio station, as well as WPHY Channel 25, covering Mercer County, New Jersey, and of course, through all of the Trenton 365 networks. Now, when I say the Trenton 365 networks, we not only do the Facebook, but we do the Instagram, the Twitter, and also the Trenton 365 community calendar page, which is where I'd like for you to draw your attention today. Today, my guest is Miss Tomika Somorin, and she is an author, and she's got a very interesting subject that we're going to be talking about, which is very much at the forefront of what's happening in society. And it's also very interesting the fact that she's going to be sharing this from the perspective that she is, and we're going to let her get into talking about that specifically. But Tomika, we finally got the tech issues fixed on my side. Thank you so much for being patient, and welcome back to the Trenton 365 show.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about who you are. Share with these folks who may not know you, because this is a bit of a different audience that you're going to be reaching through the Trenton 365 community calendar. So why don't you share a bit who you are, and then let's talk about your book.
Hi, I am Tomika Somorin. I am a Trenton resident. I have a master's and I have a master's degree. And essentially, I grew up in Trenton, Trenton Public Schools. Spent some time, working for various organizations like Anchor House, R.E.A.C.H, and currently for the state. I'm not sure what else to
say. Okay, so no, I think that's a good start to get into it. So let's transition and talk about what led you to want to explore writing, because I know that's not something that everyone has a passion to do.
So I've been writing my entire life. I started writing at about 8, and this will probably segue into my book. But essentially, I was abused at 7 and started counseling at about 8. And they encouraged us to write. We couldn't speak about our feelings, to write about our feelings. So I started writing at 8 and continued to write up until about 2 years ago, or currently. But this book was birthed out of dealing with my life and dealing with all that has occurred in my life. This book is my testimony. It's going from being my first poem that I recall writing. I said that I ran, I hid, I felt like trash. From 7 until about 13, I was sexually abused. I was physically abused. My father, who's a primary parent, died when I was 8. And I just spent a lot of years in either homeless shelters, living in abandoned buildings. But I knew deep within that someday, some way, my life would get better. And I held on to that faith that life has to get better. And I continue to write and have visions. I prayed constantly. My book, Tequila's Way, is based on the states of the mind. We have our wise mind, which is the mind of wisdom, our emotional mind, which deals with mood, emotions, focus, and just kind of it's on go, it's on feelings, it's on urges, and instant gratification. And we have our reasonable mind. Our reasonable mind is who I call Tequila, and she's cool, she's rational, and she's task focused. I realized early on that because of the level of abuse that I've experienced and because of homelessness and living in poverty, that I had to survive. And in surviving, it meant basically being human trafficked to some extent. It meant living on the streets. It meant using what I have to get what I want in order to survive. I was not able to focus on the emotional aspect because it was too deep to deal with. And in spite of me being rational and making some choices that, in spite of being rational, making some choices, that could have led down the wrong path. I thank God that He's kept me through it all. So when we look at my book essentially is it's my testimony. It's my story of saying that no matter where you are in your life, no matter what you're going through, if you just keep faith, if you just keep trusting in God, that someday, some way, your life will get better. My book is about a child who grew up in nothing, and all I had was a dream, and a father who said, "You can't make it in this world without an education. As a young Black woman, you'll be in someone's office. So I need you to conduct yourself a certain way. I need you to speak a certain way, and I need you to present yourself a certain way." So, with that, my entire life, I looked good on the outside, but on the inside, I was dying. On the inside, I constantly fought the Grand Reaper. On the inside, I, while having these feelings, I still had a desire to live. And I realized that through my adversities, that as long as I had a dream, if I had a goal, if I kept faith in the Jeremiah 29:11, that I know the plans that I have for you, that my life would get better. So with that being said, um, by the age of 18, I was a high school dropout, and I moved out of Trenton to Washington State and set some goals for myself. My goal was to complete high school, to start college, and to begin to move forward in my life. I was able to achieve those things. And that said to me that I could have whatever I want in my life as long as I stayed focused on it and kept moving forward. So I went from living in group homes and foster homes to working for the same places that I lived in as a kid. I went from um, being a kid in shelters and group homes or in foster care to being a foster parent. And this book came as a result of realizing at 40 years old, I still had a lot of unresolved issues, that I still had a lot of trauma that I pushed under and that I refused to deal with. And I realized that either you deal with it or it will keep dealing with you. So I entered into an intensive outpatient program in order to truly heal and to deal with the internal battles that I still had. So while in this program, one of their first topics was radical acceptance. And radical acceptance basically says that you don't have to agree with what has happened in your life. You just have to accept it, accept that it had occurred. And hearing that, I instantly became angry. I became willful because in my mind, radical acceptance means so what? You were abused. So what? You were homeless. So what? You know, all of these things happened to you. So what? Just deal with it and accept it. And at that time, it was such a hard pill for me to swallow to say, so what? You know, however, as I continued to work the program, I realized that's exactly it. At some point, we have to say, so what? These things has happened to us. The question becomes, what are we going to do about it in order to change it? So this book truly is my testimony. It is raw pain. I've had really great reviews about this book, and I realized that since writing this book, that I continue to heal. And today, I can truly say that I am grateful for every experience that I have had in my life. I am grateful for the men who have abused me. And I cannot tell you the number of men that have done it, but I can say, thank you. Because of you, I am me. I realize that the biggest part in being able to grow and move forward is you have to forgive. And forgiveness is not about the other person. Forgiveness is about yourself and freeing yourself and no longer giving others control over you. So I'm not sure what else you want from me,
Um,
but please feel free to ask.
and I think if you recall the first time that we talked, we probably went through the same waves. I followed your emotions as you talked about your path. I and I finished on a very much uplifted feeling in my spirit because of the way you're smiling now is exactly how you smiled to me in person when we talked about this. And then I remember you saying, but I'm okay. One of those kind of like, look, I'm okay. I'm healing. And I remember how it warmed my heart. And to hear you repeat it, I'm positive there's people who are in the listening and viewing audience who this is going to help as well. I know that you're doing a lot now with promotion of your book, and I know that you're quite busy with that. How can people contact you if they'd like to do a meeting with you, a interview with you, to purchase a series of your books, to have you lead a discussion with a small group, or vice versa? How can they get in contact with you?
So I my book took me by surprise. I'm gonna come to the back end. It took me by surprise in how it has how it's picked up and taken off. I'm not business savvy, so I don't have a website. However, I am on Facebook as Tamika Somorin. I am also on Instagram as Tequila underscore way. And I also have a blog on Facebook under Tequila's Way. And with regards to having discussions, for me, my book is not about the dollar that I can make, because I believe that God's going to reward me, not going to. He has rewarded me with peace. My book is more so about ministry, and it's about saying that no matter where you are in your life, that you can make it through as long as you have hope and you have faith and you don't give up. So I'm more than willing to um, have those discussions, with whomever it may be. And just to encourage them more than anything else, hold on, have faith. I promise you it gets greater.
That's wonderful. But I do want you to get back into a bit about the business side of this. Most folks know how I feel about artists and providing support and encouragement to them, and I need it back from others as well, from me, because I don't consider myself to be extremely business savvy on certain levels as well. But your book is available where?
My book is on Amazon through paperback and ebooks. And then I also have copies as well.
Now, if someone wanted to reach out to you locally who wanted to buy them from you, they could actually do that by contacting you on one of your social media sites.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so the social media sites, folks, you can either look it up through Tamika's name, TAMIKOSOMORIN, which will be up on the Trenton 365 community calendar page as well. The links will be there. This video will be there as well. So if you follow Trenton 365, you'll be able to see these as well on there. So just stay tuned and you can get the information from there. These segments are a little bit shorter, of course, but I want to make sure that we touch on a few different things so that we can get a broad reach of people who I'd like to have you meet through my network. So you touched on some things that most people would say buzzwords right now would be PTSD, excuse me, mental health issues. Can you just share a little bit about your personal transition through that and where you are now? And and before you do that, I want to raise my hand and say, folks, most folks know that I'm still outwardly growing and learning from a lot of these things as well. So big up to you.
I was diagnosed with anxieties and bipolar after I lost my daughter. I had a stillborn, Miss Madison. And as you can see, I'm smiling today. After Madison, I had postpartum psychosis, which basically means I literally lost my mind. I was in touch and out of touch with reality. And it began as having this intense feeling of fear, which I now know to be anxieties. But for the first time, it just was this very intense feeling of fear that if I laid down, I was going to die, or Satan himself would come and snatch my soul. Because of that, I stayed up for several days and basically downward spiraled into having postpartum psychosis. And the worst part of my experience is that it occurred in the church. And I left the church and was into the hospital. Moments I was lucid and I was able to have conversations, and other moments I heard things and I saw things. Being diagnosed with bipolar and anxieties was a hard pill for me to swallow, because I was educated. I have a master's degree. I'm working with this population. And unfortunately, when I consider bipolar anxieties, I feel that a lot of people in our community don't get the help that they need. So when I saw that, I immediately separated myself. Said, "That's not me," but that's not me. However, I knew having those anxieties, I knew that I needed help.
Mm.
So I went into an intensive outpatient program and I was given medication. Um, I also started therapy. I realized that in the Black community, we're often told, be strong, keep moving, it's going to be okay. But medication is also okay. Um, Medications for me helped me to stabilize my mood. I've been on medications for the last 10 years, the same medication. I have been stable up until a few months ago, where my PTSD was re-triggered.
Mm.
And being in this current environment, where we're dealing with the pandemic, we're dealing with the job loss, we're dealing with social isolation, you know. And one of the most important pieces I realized in this pandemic um, is that it's helped me to focus more on me, and it's taken away a lot of the excuses. Um, that coupled with being on a job for more than 4 years and feeling as though you're never good enough, no matter what you do. Again, I said I have a master's. I'm an honorary speaker at Princeton University. I work with Princeton for the last 10 years. My thesis is on burnout and the human service field. And being in a job where you're constantly trampled on and you're constantly criticized re-triggered my PTSD. I found myself being more emotional. I found myself freezing where I'm trying to speak or I'm trying to type something. The thoughts are in my head, but to get from my head to the paper or to a computer was a huge obstacle for me. When I began to realize my limits and just how much I was affected by my job, I decided to take myself out. Not even me, my doctor said, you know what? Let's take a step back. So currently I'm back into a partial outpatient program. And I'm okay that I need this additional help. I'm okay with saying, you know what? I'm great in so many areas, but because trauma has left me numb, I've never dealt with my emotions in a healthy way. So fear and excitement feels exactly the same way to me. Um,
Mm.
However, I'm learning now to give words and definitions to it and to simply be with it. There is nothing wrong with having a mental illness. If you were a diabetic and you required medication, you would have no problem taking that medication because it's going to help you. And it's the same thing for mental illness,
Mm.
that sometimes we need medication and that is okay. What's not okay is to deal with it, to have these intense feelings of depression and this dark cloud that you can't shake, or to have the constant moodiness and not do anything about it. You know, I also realized that I needed psychotherapy. I've been seeing a therapist for the last 3 years. And the saying is every good therapist have a therapist. I spent my entire life working with the community and helping the community, and it's okay to say, you know what, I'm not okay. And to get that help, we have a habit of being a strong woman, and taking on the responsibility of the world. But in the same token, we're the ones who are crumbling on the inside.
Mm.
And I believe that it was time for me to take my power back and to understand, why is this job triggering me the way that it is? Why is this job affecting me the way that it is? And I realized the reason it was affecting me is it reminded me of a time in my life where I felt like trash and that there were some unresolved issues that I had to deal with. I think that especially now with this pandemic, um, there are so many uncertainties. There are so many deaths. There are so many fears with just the unknown. We're seeing healthy people who are dying because of COVID-19. We're watching our elders die because of COVID-19. And if you're in the Trenton surrounding areas, you're also seeing that the death and the tolls and the violence have increased significantly, you know? And we look at Maslow hierarchy of needs, safety, security, and well-being. At this time, all of those things are affected. because of COVID, because it takes away our safety, it takes away our security. Anyone can be affected by it. So that in itself says, you know what, I'm not okay right now. And because of these fears, I choose to get help to help me to deal with these things.
I wanted to make sure that you know how important it is to me that you're being candid, that you're being candid in talking about, your not only your ups and the difficulties that you've had, but also to talk about your self knowledge and your self worth, because I think oftentimes that's something that we miss out on. And regardless of the situation that we're in, no matter what, we've got to take care of ourselves. We can't provide love to anyone. We can't accept love from anyone if we're not taking care of ourselves. So I appreciate you sharing about that. So in the next couple of minutes, I want you to just share a bit about the process of writing, a book. And I know I have lots of authors who come on, and everyone sort of has a different way to go about it, but I'd like for you to share about your way.
So my way is to just write. Um, I prefer the old school way, which is just pen and the paper, you know, and to write the first thoughts and ideas that come. Don't judge yourself for them. Don't even try to correct it. To just simply write whatever it is that you're feeling. And the more that you write, the more you'll be willing to write and the more you'll connect to that emotional part of you. Um, and with regards to actually publishing a book, I had this awesome, awesome editor, Trisha Williams.
Who's that?
And
Wait, who is
Trisha,
that?
Trisha Williams, I love her. So um, she posted something one day and she said, being lazy is disrespectful to those who believe in you. And she's been encouraging me for many years to write. So I basically typed up whatever I wrote, and she'll say, just write it, just type it up and give it to me. I'll make the corrections. I probably gave her 400 pages of gibberish, whatever that was, you know, talking about rain today and oranges. And she's like, wait, what? But she helped me to make sense of it. I have encouraged so many women to just write, to just get your story out because we all have a story. And whatever that story is, get it out.
Mm-hmm.
No, not just about you, but how about your children, your grandchildren? They may want to see it. Or if you have that painful piece of it, of yourself, to write it to help you to release it, because we have to release it. So to answer your question, just write.
That's awesome. That's so sweet. I was gonna finish up with talking about Ivory Sky fiction, but I'm glad you did. As you can see, you and I both get all fired up. Look at our smiles. When we talk about Trish and her family. And happy birthday to her hubby. Yeah, this is just an awesome opportunity for me to chat more with you and for you to get the word out about what you're doing. And I know that you're like you self proclaimed aren't a business person. You're not looking to do much with selling the book. You want to get the story out. But folks, I want to encourage you to please reach out to Tamika. The links will be on the Trenton 365 page as well as the Trenton 365 community calendar page. But just reach out to her. Ask a few questions. Maybe hear about that infectious spirit that she has that will absolutely have you smiling and taking you through those emotions. I'm sure of that. Tamika, before we finish up, should I say, I'd like for you to just speak to that person out there who may have a similar story or may know someone else who has a similar story, just to provide them some encouragement, please.
I would say to you that you're not at fault, that you're not to blame. Stop hating yourself because you are so worthy of love. You are so worthy of loving yourself. You are so worthy of healing. I would encourage you to reach out to Henry J. Austin, have free services for counseling, you know, um, and even for therapists and psychiatrists. I would encourage you to be intentional today to make a step towards change. When I was in that position, I promise you that I kept trust, I kept faith. And today, there is no reason why I should be this happy and to have joy in my spirit. For the first time, I'm not living in my own home. I gave up my place. I've been out of work for 2 months. I have zero income, and we're waiting with everything. And if you could see my face, you would see a huge smile on my face. And I say that because I'm healed, that I'm free.
Mm.
I say that because at some point we realize that all the things that we have are not as important as healing ourselves, as taking that step to forgive those. Again, I've said that I've been abused by God knows how many men. I've been physically abused. I've been homeless. As an adult, I dealt with domestic violence and losing a child. I've lost both of my parents. And I've learned that I had to forgive myself and I had to forgive them. And most importantly, we are so worthy of loving ourselves unconditionally. So keep faith, Jeremiah 29:11, Psalms 91, and just thank God for the healing before it even happens. And that's what it took me to get to this point.
I think that's a perfect way to finish up. Tomika Somorin, thank you so much for your time on the Trenton 365 show, doing something new, broadcasting on Facebook Live through the Trenton 365 community calendar page. You'll be able to see the links to this interview as others, and you can also listen as it is broadcast over WIMG 1300, WPHY channel 25, covering Mercer County, New Jersey, through the Verizon Fios network, and of course, through the Trenton 365 networks. Tomika, thank you so much. Nice seeing you again. I'm sure we'll be
Thank
in
you.
touch. All right.
Yes. Have a great day.
You as well. Bye now.
Bye.